Hi guys, I wanted to make a quick video outlining the budget spreadsheet that I'm sending to you guys in an email because it's a little, there's a lot of different parts to it. So this is structured in the way that they asked us to actually fill it out. And along here, there's a couple of important things that I wanted to review with you because conversations that we've had with different departments and the space restrictions that we have in our lab have impacted how we actually are able to get to this. So one thing is that our staffing ratio for the lab courses is restricted to 1 to 16 because of the space restrictions that we have. So that limits it from the original 20 that we had proposed in the original documents earlier in the year. That's more fitting with, I think, probably the kind of intensive curriculum that we want to have anyway. So we'll just kind of roll with that. The other thing is that we've had chemistry and mathematics say that they're going to need a new hire or some kind of more staffing to help them in terms of coverage of their upcoming support. So I am working on getting the documentation from both of those different chairs, but they're from the communications that we've had so far informally, that's been the case. So let me walk through the lower part in this table here, because this helps to inform this table up here that they asked us to fill out and present. So I'm going to go down here. And what we have is basically our different courses that are listed for the first year. So year one, here we are, course, and then we have the different courses. So we have BMS 314, and then we have the section of chemistry 461. I put it in red because we've added that in since the last version of this. 453 wouldn't have any students in it yet because it's just starting. In the winter, then we would have one section of our 434, 443, 201, 463, and 495 would not be filled yet. So that's what we have flowing through. If we look at the number of sections that we're running, basically this is the number of teaching credits that we have in here. So I'm just going to actually write that in there now. So that's our number of teaching credits that we have in these that we're actually doing. So this helps us to be able to calculate from the number of students and the way that the course is structured, the number of faculty that we need to hire, or at least the number of credit hours we're going to need to have staffed. So we can take this number here, the sum of that number, which is 17 in this case, and then we can use it to populate the teaching faculty load here. So I basically put it in as a formula, basically summarizing these numbers, and then putting it up here, and dividing it by 18. Now, 18 is the number of credit hours if a faculty member is teaching 9 credits per semester. And this, as they want it to be, is fall and winter. So, great. All right, so that's about 1 faculty member that would be required for that first year. In year 2, what happens is that we have 453 comes online. We have these students added to the mix. And then we also have these additional courses, 463 and 453, start to flow in. So with all of those, the teaching credits are shown here, and the number of faculty is shown here. And so then it continues to go through in this way. So what I want you to look at is to see, does this make sense to you? What I put in here is that we have, one section of 495 running for 16 people. And I think most of this will not be a surprise as far as those BMS-related courses and what we'd actually have in them. But what I want us to also look at then, as we look ahead, is what would happen if the major became very popular and we needed to accommodate more than 16 per year. In this case, I've made a new tab with 32 per year. So if we have 32 majors coming through per year, what would happen? And so in this case, what I've done is I've actually created and I've shown the first 2 years would run the same, basically, as what we had before. It's in years 3 and 4 where we start to have a popular surge in the major, as this is just my guess. I don't think it's going to be the first year we're going to have everybody come rushing through. In that case, then we would have 2 sections of the 314 come in, and then so that would mean, and so there would be 6 teaching credits that we have, and Chem 461 would still have just 1 section because they run at about 35. Here at 453, we would have that at, since that's restricted to 16 people, we would need 2 sections, so that's 6 teaching credits. And then what we have then is the winter, 434, 443, math 201. All of these are kind of coming in. And in these are lecture courses. And so I'm assuming that we could teach a lecture course of 32 students in one go. So that's my assumption. If I need to split this into 2, then let me know as soon as you can so that I can increase this. It makes the numbers work in terms of revenue differently, and I think a 32 is, a good group, but I could be wrong, and you guys might have different kinds of pedagogical aspirations for that. But I've done that for all of these different courses that are not lab courses. Okay, so now there are comment boxes here that keep popping up annoyingly, but that's to help kind of walk through that. So now that we have these numbers of teaching credits, you can see how that's impacted the total number of faculty that we're going to end up having here. And so, we're going to end up hiring the equivalent of 2 faculty, given the number of credits that need to be covered in both chemistry and mathematics and also BMS. So that's what we've got for that. The next thing that that I'm just going to point out to you is basically how the rest of the spreadsheet works. And I'm going to do it in brief because I don't think you really, it's just interesting, but it's not necessarily I need your feedback on, at least at this point. But this basically calculates the faculty load, and basically that's the assumptions that they have already built into the spreadsheets here. And then they have coverage of the COT here, which is like Katie. And then we have a program coordinator, is somebody who would be hired in to help maintain instrumentation. So we built that into the budget as well. Then we've actually added, and then this is the revenue that would be generated from the tuition dollars of the students. Oh, number of students enrolled equals to the number of students that are actually in each of these different sections here. So 30 plus 16 indicates that we'd have in the fall those 2 sections. Whereas here we have 124 because we're looking at 2 sections of BMS 314 at 30, 1 section of so on and so forth. So you get the idea that we're basically adding up the number of seats that are being occupied in different classes because of the addition of these new students. So that's the way that that's set up. The thing I do need your feedback on is on the instrumentation costs that we have for the labs. One is I've put in the new number here for the quote that I got from Shola on the LCMS. That's sort of the lower grade LCMS that we'd want to use. I want to know whether this is how this has changed since we're not using ICP-MS. What's different here? Are there other changes that have happened to the lab as we've gone through these different iterations and thought more carefully about how this is going to be executed? Another thing is, are the equipment and reagents, is this for one lab or is this for both labs? Is this for 453 and 463, or is this for 463 only? And then, is there another budget for 453? I think that the way that we designed this was basically to cover both in the hopes that the 2 classes would actually articulate with each other. But now is the time to think that through and see if there's something you want to add. All right. That's what I've got for the budget piece of this on the PTX. And thank you for listening.